Okay, I hope all of you can hear me and see my screen.
Yes,
Yeah, loud
Prabhuji.
and clear.
Okay, very good. Um, so I guess more attendees will join, but I will get started. One of the things that I want to mention before we begin is there is Ekadasi, at least in Seattle time zone this Wednesday. It might be different in Australia, but I just wanted to make a note of that. One more thing I wanted to discuss was maybe towards the end of the class when we have more participants is this time is not working for me anymore, and I might have to reschedule so we can talk about what time might be suitable for everyone. So those were the two things that I wanted to mention. Um, so having said that, I think we can get started. So this is session 3, I believe, for chapter 3 of Bhagavad Gita, titled Karma Yoga. And if I recall it right, we covered up until verse 9 last time, which is work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed, otherwise work causes bondage in this material world. Therefore, O son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction, and in that way you will always remain free from bondage. Does this sound right? We complete to verse 9. Anyone recalls?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. Uh, yeah, so we'll do a quick overview of where we are in terms of the flow of the conversation between Krishna and Arjun. So at the end of the second chapter, Krishna, having given an introduction to a lot of different themes, but he definitely touched Karma Yoga, but he was using a different term. He was referring Karma Yoga as Buddhi Yoga, and he uses Buddhi Yoga quite many times actually in the second chapter. And so, in the beginning of the third chapter, Arjuna is bewildered. So, what Arjuna gets out of the message is that the essence of the instruction was that one should use the intelligence and discriminate in the purpose of work, which is correct, but that's not the absolute thing in the sense that, well, you discriminate but you don't act. But that's how Arjuna understands, and so he asks Krishna that if the essence of doing work ultimately is to come to the platform of knowledge so that one is able to discriminate properly, then why you're asking me to engage in this war, right? So that is how he begins this inquiry. And so in response to that, uh, Krishna basically first of all starts by making the distinction and explaining what he really meant. And so this time he uses a different term. So he says that, hey Arjuna, I have already explained you there are two classes of men, right? And then now he's using different terms for those two classes of men. He says um, Jnana Yogena Sankhyanam and Karma Yogena Yoginam. So that is verse number 3, right? So he's saying that, well, what I refer to as the Sankhya, Jnana Yogena Sankhyanam, those are actually the Sankhya Yoga actually refers to Jnana Yoga, the process of knowledge. And then Buddhi Yoga, Yoginam, actually refers to Karma Yoga. So now he's so that he now, because Arjuna was emphasizing more on Buddhi, that's what his understanding came across, right? So it's very important. The words that we use convey different connotations. So Krishna is clarifying that actually by Buddhi Yoga, I am referring to Karma Yoga. I'm not referring to anything else. And then he further elaborates, saying that, hey, if you're thinking you won't work, right? By abstaining from work, you're not going to get freedom from reaction, nor can you achieve perfection by formally accepting the fourth order of life, the renounced order of life. Okay. Then he says, okay, somehow, uh, you know, even if you do this, right? Even if you somehow Even if you don't believe me, and for whatever reason you do abstain work or you accept the renounced sort of life, you'll be forced to act according to your modes of nature. In other words, you'll be forced to come back to the platform of acting like a Kshatriya. You cannot artificially renounce because everyone is forced to act helplessly. So he mentions that. Then he says, not only that, if you are not really renounced and you are just superficially accepting the fourth order of life, you are actually a pretender because your mind would still dwell on the sense objects, right? So it's better is that one sincerely practices regulated sense enjoyment, tries to control the active senses, um, and tries to begin developing detachment. That's karma yoga, right? X without attachment, that process is far more superior. Um, and at the basics of all this is that if you do not work, you cannot even maintain your family. So if you see, what is the theme of all these verses? Well, Krishna is again emphasizing the action part of it, because it's like a pendulum. The action and discrimination both go hand in hand, but Arjuna's understanding was swinging more on one side of the fact that one needs to discriminate, and he was overlooking the fact that after that discrimination he has to act. And so in this series of verses, Krishna reinforces the understanding that, well, proper discrimination doesn't mean that one becomes an armchair philosopher. One still has to act. Then he introduces this concept of yagya, right? So we started this, and one might think, okay, why is Krishna introducing this idea of yagya? But if you analyze this, it again goes back to the same points Krishna mentioned in the second chapter, which were apparently confusing for Arjuna. And Krishna is just simply trying to clarify that further. Because Krishna is thinking that, hey, you know what? Um, just like Arjuna misunderstood that karma is still important, right? It's not simply jnana. Karma is still important. Similarly, Arjuna would also probably did not understand when I was giving him specific instructions that men of small intelligence or less intelligence, they are attracted by the flowery words of the Vedas. You remember that verse in second chapter where Krishna is saying to Arjuna that men of small intelligence are attracted by the flowery words of Vedas. See, small knowledge, very much attached to the flowery word of the Vedas, which recommends various fruitive activities for elevation to heavenly planets. So what are those fruitive activities? Generally, those fruitive activities are you perform some sacrifice, right? And the demigods are pleased, and one is elevated to heavenly planets. They get good birth, power, Janma, Aishwarya, Jnana, like desires of different sense gratification, good health, good life, elevation to heavenly planets. So he says these people, because they're attached to sense enjoyment, they're attracted by such material opulence, and they're bewildered, right? And so their determination to act in their occupational duty does not become strong. So here Srila Prabhupada, Krishna actually is using Vyavashayatmika Buddhi. That's the word he uses if you look at the Sanskrit. So Vyavashayatmika Buddhi again means that intelligence to act, that one should act as per one's prescribed duties without any motivation. That's, and Srila Prabhupada translates this as devotional service, which is the right understanding. But if you look at just the word Vyavasayatmika, unless it is explained further, like Srila Prabhupada explains, it might not be very clear. Of course, it becomes clear later when Krishna is explaining in chapter 3, as he is now explaining that, hey, actually, what is the real purpose of the sacrifices? He is now explicitly explaining it. And because Krishna is explicitly later, translation, just look at the sense said in an unequivocal way what Vyavasaitmika buddhi means. And literally, it could mean that one has to be resolute in one's occupational duty. Ultimate occupational duty is the devotional service to the Supreme Lord, as Krishna would now explain. And then in the second chapter, Krishna is saying, well, Vedas deal with the subject of the three modes of material nature, which is, and three modes of material nature act within this material world. They don't act within the kingdom of God. And so he's describing all this. Now, because of that, the proper understanding of what is the real reason is still not elaborated. If you see, Krishna is only saying that those who do not have proper intelligence, they are attracted by flowery language of the Vedas. And they think this is the ultimate purpose of life, to enjoy, to be elevated to heavenly planets. Then he's saying that these Vedas are like a great reservoir of water, right? And those who really know that Vedas are a great reservoir of water, which in a great reservoir of water serves many purposes, right? A small well, if you go to a village, right, you have different well. One well is only for fetching water for bathing. Another well could be for drinking water. You don't mix things, right? Because in the well, the water is not flowing, right? It's a stagnant water. And so if you mix, it's subject to contamination. But the river is flowing, right? You go to the river, you can bathe, you can wash clothes, you can do all purposes can be served because it's a larger reservoir of water, it's flowing. Similarly, Vedas, they serve all the purposes. Material purposes, spiritual purposes, two broad categories. But those who are not intelligent, they are only attracted by material purposes. So here Krishna is giving a hint, but Arjuna is not getting it. So Krishna is thinking, well, Arjuna, because he did not get the first part, he mistook Buddhi Yoga to be an exclusive mental or intellectual activity. I don't think he really understood what is the ultimate purpose of the Vedas. He gives that, hey, there is a higher purpose. The Vedas, there is a higher purpose that needs to be served, but it doesn't seem like Arjuna has understood it. So now he's elaborating on the same point in unequivocal manner, and he's providing more details. So that's what we're going to cover today. Just to make sure that now the question might be, what is that higher purpose, right? He says many purpose. See, there is, the Vedas, they can serve those who really know the purpose of the Vedas. All the purposes can be served to someone who knows the real purpose behind them, right? Otherwise, those who do not know the real purpose, they are only attracted by those things that they are interested in. So now Krishna is going to elaborate on that, and that is verse number 10. That is just a quick recap of how that conversation is flowing. So now here in third chapter, Krishna will actually speak a series of 35 verses non-stop. And he's going to elaborate and clarify some of the things which Krishna sees that, hey, Arjuna is not really understood. He's going to elaborate on those points in much more detail, right? So he introduces this concept of yagya. Yagya means sacrifice for Vishnu, right? So when here it says that Janma Aishwarya, elevation to heavenly planets, those are outcome of the sacrifices, but those who do not have proper understanding, they actually think, oh, I'm doing this sacrifice for satisfaction of the demigods. The demigods are providing these benefits to me. But now Krishna is making clear, well, yajna is not meant for satisfaction of demigods, not their sole satisfaction. Actually, this yajna is for sacrifice of Vishnu, and Vishnu is satisfied, demigods are satisfied, right? So now he is going to explain much more detail what is the science of yajna. So that's where we are. Okay, verse number 10. Saha yajna praja srishtva purovacha prajapati anena prasavishyadhvam eshavo astva istakamadhuk. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. In the beginning of creation, the Lord of all creatures sent forth generations of men and demigods, along with sacrifices for Vishnu, and blessed them by saying, be thou happy by this yajna. because its performance will bestow upon you everything desirable for living happily and achieving liberation. So see, that same point in second chapter, there's more depth provided. What are the two depths? So here the hint is given, it has many purposes. A reservoir, a greater reservoir can serve more than one purposes, right? We read that. Here now he is explicitly saying what are those purposes in two broad categories: materially living happy and then spiritual. So there are two purposes of that sacrifices. Men of small intelligence are only attracted by this. That is the import. That is why Krishna is bringing up this elaboration at this point in time. So he's going back to what I have told Arjuna and how much he has got. Also, at the same time, he's making the explicit mention that these sacrifices are for Vishnu, right? Yajna, right? Again, Srila Prabhupada translates, it still might not be very clear because he's saying yajna. He has not used the word yajna earlier, right? He just saying flowery language of the Vedas, but now he's explicitly saying yajna. Now, yajna is actually meant for satisfaction of Vishnu. Now, some people have a misunderstanding that yajna could be for demigods, but actually, if you see, it's meant for satisfaction of Vishnu. So that clarification again will come further later, but actually Krishna is providing more details over here. Okay. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada mentions that material creation by the Lord of creatures. So Lord of creatures here is referred to Vishnu, right? Because though Brahma is the creator, what is the source of Brahma? Brahma is born from the lotus, which emanates from the navel of Vishnu. Okay. So the original Lord of all creatures is Vishnu. He is the original creator. Brahma is a secondary creator, right? Generally, Vishnu is known as maintainer, which is true. But then if you go and see who is the source of Brahma, right, then you know that Brahma is born out of Vishnu. And why is this material creation created? So that it is offered, that a chance is offered to all the conditioned souls that they achieve perfection and they go back to the kingdom of God, back to God. All the living entities within the material creation are conditioned by the material nature because of their forgetfulness of the relationship to Vishnu. So the original nature is to be servant of Krishna or Vishnu. Jiveshu Ruphoy Krishna Nityadas. Now because we are come to this material world and acquired a material body with consisting of mind, intelligence, and ego, we also acquire a secondary nature which is not our real nature. It's the artificial imposition, and that's the nature of the ego. Okay. The Vedic principles, they are there to help us understand the eternal relation as stated in the Bhagavad Gita. Vedescha sarve ahameva vedya. So here another hint is given. Well, what is the purpose of the Vedas? Vedas are not simply to tell us, give us different means of karma kanda by which we can enjoy in this world perpetually. That's not the idea, right? What is the purpose? Both living happily, not so that one continues the existence of perpetual living over here with happiness, right? That's the misunderstanding among those who follow karma kanda, which you don't find many, unfortunately, who are practicing that. But in the bygone ages, when people were following ritualistic ceremonies, they were, a majority of them were attracted by this. But the idea is that, well, one lives happily so that without lot of trouble, one can continue to make progress for this purpose, which is achieving liberation. Okay. Right. So that's why the purpose of the Vedas is not elevation to heavenly planets. What is the purpose? Vedescha sarve aham eva vedya. The purpose of the Vedas is to know me. Krishna is saying, aham, me, eva vedya. The Lord says that purpose of the Vedas is to understand him. Right. In the Vedic hymns, it says, patim vishvashyatmeshvara. Therefore, the Lord of the living entities is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, also, Srila Shukadeva Goswami describes Lord as Pati in so many ways. Right? So, here's a verse quoted from 2.4.20 of Srimad Bhagavatam. So, Prajapati is Lord Vishnu. He's the original Prajapati. I mean, there are many Prajapatis. Right? So, as soon as Brahma was born, he was the only person only being in the universe, and his task was to increase the population of the universe across all the species of life. Why? So that here, right in the first, we just read it. So they're all living entities who have already entered the material universe. They get a chance to go back to Godhead, right? So this body is a means, it's a vehicle by which, just like a boat helps us to cross the ocean, this body is a vehicle by which we can cross the ocean of material nescience, which means material ignorance, right? So that's why the creation happens. The purpose of the creation is that, people, they can achieve perfection and go back to Godhead. But then, people who do not have proper understanding, they mistake that, well, so that I can enjoy here, unlimitedly and forever. And so they misuse the Vedas because they don't understand it properly. So Lord created his material worlds to enable the conditioned souls to learn how to perform sacrifices or yajnas for the satisfaction of Vishnu. So while they are in this world, they can live comfortably without anxiety. But that's not the ultimate goal. What is the ultimate goal? That after finishing present material body, they can enter the kingdom of the God. You see, so that's the full understanding. The Krishna had given a hint in second chapter, but Arjuna did not understood it. Krishna realized that, hey, I don't think he understood it fully. He gave a hint that, well, a greater reservoir, a larger reservoir of water can serve many purposes. So that's a hint, my analogy, but Arjuna did not understand what are those multiple purposes. That is a whole program for the conditioned soul. By performance of yajna, the conditioned souls gradually become Krishna conscious and becomes godly in all respects. Right? So this yajna, ultimately, one who is intelligent realizes that who is the ultimate beneficiary of this yajna. No? Not the demigods, but who is the source of demigods? Adi Deva. Right? These are all the devas. 330 million demigods and demigoddesses, these are all the devas. And among them, the greatest is Mahadev or Shiva. But who is the original Deva? Adi Deva or a Deva Deva. Another name of Krishna is Deva Deva. That means who is the Deva for even the Devas. The God, the God for the demigods. Deva Deva. Right? So for us, the Devas are the demigods. But then who is above the demigods? So Deva Deva or Adi Deva. So there are different names of Krishna. In the age of Kali, so the sacrifices are very elaborate, and especially the performance of these sacrifices of dravya or different paraphernalia, different offerings of dhanya, right? Grains, ghee, butter, all that is offered in the homam that requires a lot of opulence. And so it's primarily the Grihastha ashram is prescribed to perform these sacrifices. The brahmacharis are still celibate students. The vanpras, they are retired, and sannyasis, they don't have means. And the Grihasthas traditionally had, depending, the Kshatriyas were wealthy because they collected taxes, and the Vaishyas, they were farming and cow protection, and the Sudras who were maintained, they didn't have to worry about salary, and then, did the salary be enough or not? They were provided all their basic needs of clothing, housing, and meals. They were automatically taken care of. They didn't get salary, but they didn't have any anxiety of would they be able to keep up with the maintenance. But in Kali Yuga, the Grihastha ashram is such that we are all debt ridden, right? I mean, we can say we can have some standard of living, but a lot of that is artificial. What is the average debt of America, right? An average individual in America has so much debt in student loans, right? Right now, that's what, $1.3 trillion worth of student loans, just to even before one starts employment, right? You think in early back days, like, okay, you start from zero, you don't have any debt, but you're going to start earning wealth. But even before one enters the workforce, he's already debt ridden. You go to a 4-year college, $100,000. And then if someone studies a program which does not have a lot of employment opportunities, different kind of arts or history, and there's a lot of money spent when there's no return on investment. And even in those programs where there is a return, it takes a long time to pay the debt. So that's just student loan. Then you talk about the credit card. Average revolving debt is $10,000 on credit, just on credit cards. It's a revolving debt. You could have car loans. Most people would pay off in few years, but the credit card debt, the student debt, and the mortgage. You get 30 years mortgage, right? The same, and then how the prices of the homes are just keep going up, especially in the metro cities like Seattle area. I think nothing's less than $1 million. So anyway, the point is, it says in Kali Yuga, Srimad Bhagavatam says that it describes that the challenges of all the 4 ashrams, right? And of the Grihastha ashram, he says Bhikshavasya Kutumbina. The Kutumbina or the Grihasthas, which are actually meant to support the other 3 ashrams. They are like beggars in the sense that they do not have any real wealth. So we can, essentially the point is, we cannot perform those elaborate sacrifices. So what is the best sacrifice that can be performed, which does not cost anything, right? Even a pauper can perform this, which is the chanting of the holy names of the Lord. That is Sankirtana Yajna. It is a sacrifice because it requires us to spend some energy, engage our tongue and our mind. Again, that is provided by the Lord. So instead of offering dravya, we are engaging our senses in sacrifice. So this is recommended by Vedic scriptures, and this is a transcendental system introduced by Lord Chaitanya for the deliverance of all men in this age. So this is the most effective and the feasible process that everyone can participate in. Sankirtan Yajna and Krishna consciousness go well together. Lord Krishna in his devotional form as Lord Chaitanya is mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam as follows. So here Srila Prabhupada comes in the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, and the Gaudiya Sampradaya is origination in Lord Chaitanya, who appeared in Bengal 500 years ago. And he appeared as a devotee. So when Krishna speaks Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, he's theoretically telling him how one should perform devotional service. But a good teacher not only theoretically explains, but practically shows it. And many times most students, they don't get it until they see a practical demonstration. And so the Lord, being the greatest teacher, he came as a devotee to practically show how to perform devotional service. And so when he came as Lord Chaitanya, he appeared as a devotee, and this time he did not reveal that he is God himself. When he appeared as Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, he declares openly, right? And I am the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When he appears as Chaitanya, he does not do that, right? Because he appears as a devotee, and that's why many people don't know that he is God himself. So he's a Chinna avatar, he's a hidden. But based on different scriptural references, we can confirm that Lord Chaitanya is none other than Krishna himself. So there are many references. Here there's one reference in Srimad Bhagavatam. He says, Krishna Varnam Tvisha Krishnam. Right? The original Varna is Krishna Varna. Right? But he does not appear, when he appears, he is not going to appear as bluish black form. Right? He appears Sango Pangastra Parsadam Yagyai Sankirtana Prayer Yajanti Hisu Medaha. So in Kali Yuga, people who are endowed with sufficient intelligence will worship the Lord, that is Krishna, when he appears accompanied by his associates. His expansions, all his immediate intimate devotees, all his associates, they again appear in Kali Yuga. And this time by performance of Sankirtana Yajna. So we see Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he propagated the Sankirtan movement all over India when he appeared 500 years ago. He traveled extensively to South India, spent 16 years of his life in Bengal first. Then he entered Sannyas ashram. He spent initial time traveling, and the later part of his pastimes, he lived in Jagannath Puri and exhibited such ecstatic symptoms of devotion which are not even described in the scriptures. So he came in the mood of Radharani. That is the internal reason he appeared, because he wanted to experience the love in separation. This, he says, oh, there's what is in me that my devotees get so much enjoyment. I want to experience that as well. And so he appeared in the mood of Radharani, because Radha, she was away from Krishna for 100 years after Krishna left Vrindavan, went to Mathura, and then eventually to Dwarka. And she was always in this mood of separation. And the love in the mood of separation is higher than the love in the mood of union. And Lord himself wanted to experience it. That is the internal reason. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appears. So other yagyas prescribed in the Vedic literatures are not easy to perform in this age of Kali. But the Sankirtan yagya is very easy, and is a sublime process for all purposes, as recommended in Bhagavad Gita 9:14. So we'll cover that later. So there are two reasons Lord Chaitanya appeared. One is external reason is to spread the Sankirtana Yagya, and then internal reason is that he wanted to experience the same mellows that his most intimate and pure devotees like Radharani, they experience it. Okay, so that is verse number 10. Any questions on this before we move on? Okay, verse 11. Devan bhava yatanin te deva bhavayantu vah parasparam bhavayantaha shreya param avapshyata. Translation: demigods being pleased by sacrifices will also please you, and thus by the cooperation between men and demigods the prosperity will reign for all. So the first purpose of, again, the sacrifice is, one is, well, one must live comfortably, right? So they're not full of anxiety, so that they can practice the path of liberation, right? And so all the necessities that we need, they are provided. The demigods are in charge of providing those necessities. And what happens is the sacrifice is actually meant for satisfaction of Vishnu, but the prasadam, once the sacrifice is done, the remnants, they are first offered to the demigods, and then we accept it, so it becomes Mahaprasad, because it's remnants of the remnants, right? But because the demigods are the via media, some people who do not have proper understanding, they think they might come to the incorrect conclusion that demigods are all in all, and that they are the ultimate beneficiary as well as the benefactor. There is the ultimate beneficiary of the yagya, and also that they are the providers of the benedictions. So that is a misunderstanding that people develop, because they do not have direct access to Vishnu. In the Govardhan pastime, in Krishna Leela, we see the same thing. And then the Maharaj, he was performing this elaborate sacrifice for Indra. And Krishna says, why you're offering to Indra? He says, well, we are farmers. We are dependent on rain. We don't offer it to Indra, then how are we going to survive? Well, he says, then Krishna provides the argument, hey, the rain is falling even in the ocean. Who is performing again in the ocean? So anyway, Krishna wanted to teach a lesson to Indra, because Indra had also become proud. And then the whole pastime where Krishna lifts the Govardhan hill when Indra becomes angry and wants to teach a lesson, because he thought, who is this small boy who thinks he's going to offer me sacrifices? He feels offended. So the flip side of this is that because people have this misunderstanding, or they develop misunderstanding that the demigods are the ultimate beneficiaries, the demigods also sometimes start thinking that I am the ultimate beneficiary, right? So it's both ways. It's not that people have misunderstanding, but the demigods themselves start thinking, oh, I am the ultimate enjoyer, as was the case with Indra. He had become too proud, and he thought, hey, this stopping the sacrifice. He was personally offended. He says, I am the enjoyer of all these sacrifices. It's for me, right? But he's not. That's why Krishna wanted to teach him a lesson. Well, you are not the ultimate beneficiary. He wanted to teach that lesson to Indra. So the misunderstanding is on the both sides, and we see this in practical experience also. Like the government officials, they are called public servants. Now, who are they serving? Well, they're serving the government, right? I mean, under the order of the federal authorities or the president. The president is again, subservient to the constitution. But sometimes this government officials, they start thinking that they are the ultimate authority. I mean, in the back of the mind, they know, but they act like it. That's why they collect bribe. Just like the sacrifices, they are meant for satisfaction of Vishnu, but the demigods might hold it back, and they say, oh, this is for my own enjoyment. So similarly, we see the same tendency, just like demigods are maintaining different managerial aspects of the universe. The government officials, they are actually also responsible for different departments. And when somebody is submitting taxes or other remuneration, other obligations, it's not for them to consume for their own enjoyment, right? It has to go to the government treasury. But people who don't have intelligence, like in India, people who don't have education, they meet, they come across a government official, they would refer to them as what they call sarkar. Aap hi sarkar ho, aap hi mai baap ho. They use all these words because they think, this, because they are the representatives of the government, the people, they treat them as an ultimate authority. And because of that, these people start thinking, yes, I am the ultimate authority. I mean, they know at the back of their mind they are not, but they act like it. So the same tendency is seen among the devas also, and among the people who worship the demigods. But the higher, so that is the misunderstanding. That is what is the man of small knowledge. They come to that incorrect conclusion. But there is a higher purpose, and that's what Krishna is going to explain in the next verse. But anyway, so the basic necessities, they are provided through the agency of the demigods. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada mentions that demigods are actually empowered administrators of material affairs. So different things that we need for our survival, like air, light, water, they're actually all benedictions, right? Which are we need for maintenance of our body and soul. And different demigods are actually entrusted. They are actually innumerable assistants in different parts of the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So they collectively form the universal form of the Lord, right? So Krishna, apart from him having his original form, the Shyama Sundara form, he also has a Vishwaroop, which he later shows to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita. And different devas, they collectively form that universal form of the Lord. And because what it means, it's a figurative metaphor or an analogy, but what it means is that they are serving the purpose of the Supreme Personality of God, and in that sense they are parts of the body. Just like the different departments within a government, they are actually meant for serving the government. They together comprise the body of the government, right? In a way. So their pleasures and displeasures are dependent on the performance of yajnas by human being, right? Just like if I stop paying my taxes, what will happen, right? The government does not get its revenue, and then these government officials, they sometimes, why are they furloughed? Remember, every now and then they have this debt limit, artificial debt limit. Once they hit the ceiling, at least in US, we have this idea where government can only have a certain level of debt, and they're using that to actually pay their employees, right? And if they hit the debt ceiling, then what happens? The employees, they start getting furloughed until they increase the debt limit. Recently, there was this USCIS where, because of the pandemic, all the travel, whether for leisure or business, had stopped, and all the revenue from all this work visas or visitors visas had stopped. And then they had all the employees which are out of employment, they had to furlough a lot of them, right? So there's no taxes, right? So basically it's the same thing. So the oblations that we offer in sacrifice, it's a subtle instrument, yeah, by which, well, taxes, what is the value in paper, right? Well, nowadays it's not even paper, it's all digital, right? When you're hungry, you cannot eat paper, right? It's all nominal value. It's an instrument by which there is a faith in that instrument, and by that instrument the economy works, the transaction works, but there is no intrinsic value in the bits of digital currency or the paper itself, right? Because there is a trust in the government, or the treasury that backs it, there's value in the currency. Similarly, the oblations they offered, which are offered in the sacrifice, are also an instrument, yeah, right, by which the transaction occurs, right, where we offer it for satisfaction of Vishnu and all of the demigods. So their pleasures and displeasures are actually dependent on the performance of yagyas by human beings. Some of the yagyas are meant to satisfy a particular demigods, but even in so doing, Lord Vishnu is worshipped in all yagyas as a chief beneficiary. See, so that is not clear to many individuals, and so they think that the ultimate beneficiary is those specific demigods from whom they seek benedictions. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita that Krishna himself is beneficiary of all the kind of yagyas. So later we'll see Krishna quotes this verse. He says, Bhokta Ram Yagya Tapasan. I am the ultimate Bhokta, or the beneficiary of all austerities and all sacrifices. Therefore, ultimate satisfaction of Yagyapati, the chief purpose of, is the chief purpose of all the yagyas. So who is the Yagyapati, right? That is Krishna or Vishnu. His satisfaction is the ultimate purpose. When these yagyas are perfectly performed, naturally the demigods in charge of the different departments of supply are pleased, and there is no scarcity in the supply of natural products. So when Vishnu is pleased, the demigods are pleased. Just like demigods are the different parts of the universal form of the Lord, you can compare that to the analogy of a plant. A plant has the root, the stems, right, the leaves, the flowers, and fruits. If the root is watered, all the parts of the plant are automatically nourished. But if you water the fruit or the flower or the leaves, it's not going to help. Similarly, when Vishnu is the root of all the demigods, right, when he is satisfied, all demigods are satisfied. And then the fruit naturally grows nicely on the plant if the root is watered. And when that fruit grows nicely, then the human beings can enjoy that fruit. Similarly, when Vishnu is satisfied, the demigods are satisfied, and demigods, they provide different benedictions and necessities of life which the human beings can avail. Performance of yagyas has many side benefits, ultimately leading to the liberation from material bondage. So this is the real purpose. By performance of yagyas, all activities become purified, as it is stated in the Vedas. Ahara suddha sattva suddhi sattva suddho dhruva smriti smriti lambe sarva granthinam vipramoksha. By performance of yagya, one's eatables become sanctified. So even the food that we prepare, we first offer it as a yagya. That means that is for satisfaction of the deities. And when we eat the remnants, which are now purified because they are already consumed by Vishnu, our own existence becomes purified. And by purification of existence, finer tissues in memory become sanctified, and our senses become purified by honoring such sanctified prasadam, right? And when senses is purified, the mind is purified, intelligence is purified, our memory becomes fine, right? And when that memory is fine and sanctified, then we can think of what is the real purpose of life. We can think about the path of liberation. And all these activities together, they lead to Krishna consciousness, which is the of very need in the present day society. So this is the sum and substance of this verse number 10. Anyone has any questions or comments?
So, Prabhuji, in the last paragraph, if you can scroll, where it said that the ultimate goal is liberation. So, yeah, exactly this one. So, by this, do we mean the same thing that you mentioned earlier, like the law of diminishing returns? Is this what we are talking here?
Performance of yagyas has many side benefits, ultimately leading to liberation from material bondage. Yeah, so you can, because see, everyone cannot see, no one directly comes to the conclusion that I want to surrender to the Supreme. Everyone starts with material motivation. Even one who comes to the platform of devotion, ultimately people are, later Krishna says in Gita, the 4 kind of people who approach me, right? One who are seeking relief from material misery, those who are inquisitive, those who seek liberation, right? So there are different But if you see all these categories, they want something in return, right? So you're absolutely right that ultimately, why is the first part given, right? If you directly tell someone, hey, fully surrender to Krishna, and it's like, what are you talking about? There's no link, right? There's no, just later also in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that jnanam gyayam parigyata trivida karma chodana. The three factors for motivation is the knower, the object of knowledge, and the knowledge itself, right? That means, what is the motivation? There is some purpose that I want to achieve, and I should have knowledge about that, and I'm the knower when all these three combine. So you're right. So the Vedas are written initially to attract people to at least take up the path of dharma, right? And they need material benedictions just to maintain their body. It's an absolute need. No one can say they don't need it. So the Vedas provide that. But so they're already on that platform, right? And once you're on that platform, they already have that attachment and they're aware. And when, as the law of diminishing returns, as you just mentioned, when it kicks in, then if they're engaged according to their nature, they won't give up their activities whimsically. They will continue to act, but then they will question, well, what is the real purpose? Well, ultimately, they will come to the platform of knowledge, right? That is the Arjuna's ultimate dilemma, right? He is asking, he's confused. He does not know why I have to act. Well, I have to act is ultimately once the glitter is gone, right? The glitter of the things that one wants to enjoy, which goes away by law of diminishing returns, intelligent man will question what is the purpose. That's why Krishna is saying ultimate purpose is to come to the platform of knowledge or intelligence. Why I am doing, who is the beneficiary. Arjuna misunderstands that. He thinks, okay, that is the higher purpose is discrimination. That means I don't have to act. So you're absolutely right here. It is referring to um, uh, yes, many side benefits means those side benefits are that the main purpose is leading to liberation, but the benefits are that in the process, while we are in this world, we need to maintain our body. Does that answer your question?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So in most of my reading so far, and like yajnas are always performed by like the kings or people who have plenty, right? There is very rarely a mention of a common man performing yajnas. So can you talk a little bit about why that disparity exists and what's like in the what a common person does, right? And what's considered yajna and what's not?
Yeah, that's a good question. So especially in Treta Yuga, the prescribed duty is performing sacrifices, and the kings or the kshatriyas, when they collect taxes, right now taxes means you collect the money and you want to develop different public works. But the kings, when they collect, kings are representatives of God, right? They're representatives of they're supposed to be the representatives of Krishna. And so when they collect all the taxes, they're supposed to use those taxes for performing sacrifices, so that Vishnu is pleased, the demigods are pleased, and all the benedictions are provided. So that observation is absolutely correct. But beyond that, the common men also, especially when you're talking about the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas, they would perform sacrifices on almost daily basis. One Vaishyas would do it on occasions, and then those are called what is called pancha. There are 5 kind of sacrifices that are performed. What is called pancha yagya. We find out pancha yagya for householder. So I can tell you what exactly those are. I think 5 kind of pancha mahayagya, right? 5 daily duties, yes. So these are called naimitic dharmas. There are 2 dharmas. Naimitic means on a daily cadence, and then there is another one which is performed occasionally. So of the naimitic, 5 daily duties. So these are the 5 kind of yagyas. that one has to perform on daily basis. Brahma Yagya, right? It comprises of studying of Vedic scriptures, morning and evening meditation, practice of yoga discipline. Then you have Deva Yagya, which is primarily Agnihotra Yagya, that is performed, uh, comprise of offering oblations of ghee, reciting mantras, right? Then the Pitri, every day one has to uh, offer oblations to one's forefathers. There's more further divisions within the Pitri. There is Tarpan, there is Shraddh. Well, Shraddh happens at a regular cadence, it's not daily, but some of them, so again, there are a lot of divisions in it. Then there is Vaishwadeva Yagya. It involves offering some part of the cooked food to fire in the kitchen, right? So because we use that fire for first cooking the food. So in this way, we are actually obligated to so many things. The essence of all this is that where you take light, you take air, everything is provided by the different demigods. And in the later verses, actually, you will see further down where Krishna gives hint to this. There is not elaborating all these five, but he says, see, in charge of various necessities of life, the demigods being satisfied by performance of yajna will supply necessities to you. But he who enjoys such gifts without offering to them to the demigods in return is certainly a thief. So this is the essence based on which all these namitic duties, daily duties are prescribed. You are whatever is being offered to us, again, we do not directly consume. You offer it back to the demigods and you again take them. So it's a perpetual cycle. I hope that answers. Again, it's a very detailed science. I don't know all the specific details of it, but I do know these are the 5 yagyas which are prescribed. The subtle differences between that, again, not possible in the present day and age, but this is the understanding, the essence of that is captured over here in the verse 12 that we will discuss.
Can you please share that link that you were just showing, please?
Yes.
When you get a chance, thank you.
I'll send it to chat right now.
Okay. There's no chat on this.
Yeah?
There's no chat on this, or I don't see a chat on this meeting, so.
Okay, I'll send it to WhatsApp.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions anyone have? Okay. Is it verse 11? Which one are we doing? I lost track. Is verse 12 now or 11?
12.
We are on 12 now, right? Okay. Yeah, so this is the same verse which answers your question. So we just completed 11. Ishtan bhogan hi vo devat dashyante yagya bhavita ter dattan apradayebhyo yo bhungte stena eva saha. In charge of various necessities of life, the demigods, being satisfied by the performance of yajna, sacrifice, will supply all necessities to you, but he who enjoys such gifts without offering them to the demigods in return is certainly a thief. Right, so this is verse 11. Just going over the progression of thought. Right. So the cooperation between mans and demigods. One more important point I wanted to mention. If you see, the worship of demigods was pretty common. Even in the beginning of Kali Yuga, if you go to see some of the Mayan temples in Central America, you would take a tour guide, they will tell, they would offer sacrifices, and they have the ideas of different demigods. If you look at the Roman gods, and they have the god of light and air and water, and similarly the Greeks. So before the Christianity or Islam or all this traditions, if you see, they're kind of Vaishnava traditions, because their emphasis is focusing more on worship of the Supreme Father. But same thing Islam. But if you see the history of both Christianity and Islam, when they came, you will find references to where the prophets, they stopped or discouraged the worship of they call idols, but then these idols were means to worship different devas and devis. That was the practice. But so not go, I mean, we can talk about that in much more detail, but the essence of that again was that this is not something very unique to the Vedic culture, but of course in the Vedic culture the science was much more elaborate and very specific, and again the ancient India was the mother of spirituality, and people from all over the world used to come to India to learn different sciences, and they were all influenced by the Vedic culture. At some point or other, they probably all got it from the same culture, some same Vedic culture. But the point is that the worship of the demigods was there all over in all the cultures, right? In the Kali Yuga, that has stopped completely. But so that mutual the prosperity for all was there, and that's why you see, and many times the going to the demigods to come down on this earth, and for some of the men to go up to the heavenly kingdom. So that interplanetary travel was also there. Even if you see the Greek theology or even Egyptian theology, for instance, the pyramids, they will see that such and such person is the son, half demigod, half human. So that just like in the Pandavas, they are half human and half demigods, right? Arjuna is a son. His mother is a Manav, but then Arjuna is his father begotten by Indra, right? So Yudhishthir begotten by Yamaraj. So if you see the ancient history all over the world, you will find descriptions in all theologies where the communication, exchanges, and visits were very, very common. And similarly, in other traditions, you will find somebody who is actually an offspring of a deva or a demigod. So it's not uncommon. Okay, back to verse 12. Purport: the demigods are authorized supplying agents on behalf of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Right? So that's a very important point. Therefore, they must be satisfied for the performance by the performance of prescribed yagas. In the Vedas, there are different kind of yagas prescribed for different kind of demigods, but all are ultimately offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. See, they are agents, just like the government officials. They are agents on the behalf of the, say, IRS employees, right? They are collecting on the behalf of the treasury, and there is a chief treasurer, right? And there is, but they are not the direct beneficiary of it. For one who cannot understand what the personality of Godhead is, sacrifice to demigods is recommended, right? So this goes back to the question that Nitin was asking, right? So that when those understanding is not there, then people, they are attracted by whatever their immediate needs are, and so we don't want to disturb their understanding. Let that process be gradual, right? They will come to the proper understanding at some point in time. And so that's why it is recommended. Okay, at least this person is acting on dharma. Let them worship the demigods. So that is not the full, complete understanding, but eventually they will come to the proper understanding. According to different material qualities of the persons concerned, different types of yagas are recommended in the Vedas, and this also will discuss in much more detail in the next chapter. What are the different kind of yagas? So the yagas that we have talked so far is mostly the offering of dravya or oblations, but then there is yagya of mind, of intelligence, of body, and all these analogies are described in much more details. We'll do that in the next chapter. Worship of different demigods is also on the same basis, namely according to different qualities. For example, the meat eaters are recommended to worship the goddess Kali, the ghastly form of material nature. Before the goddess, the sacrifice of animals is recommended. So because they are people of different nature, the modes of nature are very active, right? Those are mode of ignorance who are inclined and addicted to eating meat. So how do you bring them on the platform of dharma? If you just ask them to stop it, immediately they might be offended, or they might not do it. So at least bring them on the platform of scriptures. He said, okay, you want to eat meat? Well, do it based on the regulation provided by the scriptures. So now at least they will develop the attachment. They have to follow in dharma. So then scripture says, okay, you go to Kali once in a month, right? On a new moon night, Amavas. Take a goat, lesser animal, no cow, no bull, but a lesser animal like goat. You sacrifice only once a month. So see, it's not that you can do unlimited animal killing, maintain slaughterhouses. That was never recommended. So even those who are addicted or accustomed to eat, it's rarely. Even if you see, China is a huge consumer of meat now, but traditionally they would eat what, chickens, or that's also once in a while. Like cannot grow a cow does not. You cannot slaughter a cow daily. You will soon run out of cows, right? For instance. Nowhere in the world it was not there, right, until this mass scale slaughterhouses came out. Anyway, then they have to chant a mantra, right? So mamasa, what is mamsa? Meat, mamsa. The definition of mamsa is sa mam khadati iti mamsa. So the prayer that they offer to Kali is just like I am killing this animal right now. I'm offering it to you as a sacrifice first. I mean, then I'm eating the remnants. But uh, uh, just as I'm killing the animal now, this animal may kill me in future. So the understanding of karma is, if he's really intelligent, is entailed that it's he is going to get a reaction, right? And so in this way, what happens is that person comes on the platform of dharma. Is intelligent, he will stop. And the whole idea is how to reduce or diminish and come to the proper understanding. But now what has so the whole idea is, well, you're providing that platform at least on dharma, so that once they are connected to the platform, then they can buy other services. Just like on Amazon, you maybe you started buying something, but because you're on that platform, earlier you might be buying only 2 products, but now you have access to way more products, right? So you're applying kind of the same concept to spirituality. So the Vedas, they provide that dharmic platform where it is regulated, even if somebody is accustomed to indulging in such lower propensities. But because they are on their platform, there is a hope that they would be gradually elevated. And again, different devas and different demigods, they are in different modes. Why you have 330 million demigods and demigoddesses? Because there are innumerable shades or innumerable natures of people. Just like red, green, and blue, they can combine in different permutations and combinations and create innumerable shades of colors. Similarly, sattva, raja, and tama can combine in different combinations and create unlimited possibilities of different nature that we have. And so all these demigods and demigoddesses, they are also in different nature. And depending on the nature of one individual, worship of a particular demigod is prescribed, right? So Kali is none other than Durga, but the form of Kali is very ghastly, right? All these devis or demigoddesses, you Kodya, Ramba, Durga, or the Saraswatis, they're all expansions actually of, they all come from the same feminine form, right? So all the devis, they come from Durga, but Durga is expansion of who, right? She is an expansion of Lakshmi. Lakshmi is in the spiritual world. Durga is in the material world. Lakshmi comes from whom? She comes from originally from Radha Rani. Just like Krishna is the source of Vishnu, Radha is the source of Lakshmi, right? And from Vishnu comes all the devas, and so from Lakshmi comes all the devis, right? So in this way, according to the modes of nature of people, they are recommended to worship different kind of demigods and demigoddesses. Anyway, in this presentation, none of that is prescribed or not visible. The mode of worship is also not pure. That's why it's recommended to follow the Vaishnava culture, because again the time is less. The gradual elevation, we don't know how long our life will be. In Kali Yuga, life is very short. previous ages, they used to live 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 years. So that Vaishnava ideology is there in other cultures also, right? If you look at Christianity or Islam, why they worship that one God, the worship of the devas, it's so pretty much stopped everywhere in all traditions. Ultimately, all yajnas are meant for gradual promotion to the transcendental position, right? So gradual promotion, right? The question is, do we have the time, right? That's why in Kali Yuga, the best process is to directly take up the worship and service of Krishna. For ordinary man, there are at least 5 yajnas known as Pancha Mahayagya. So we just talked about that, right? And we looked at what those 5 daily yajnas are. Srila Prabhupada quotes. So it's very interesting, Parul, when you brought up that question, because Krishna is elaborating that over here. That means it's in the succession of this, right? So what is the proper understanding of worship of the demigods? Yeah, so those are called Pancha Mahayagyas, the 5 yagyas at least, right? Ordinary men. So it's not for kings, specifically for ordinary men. One should know, however, that all the necessities of life that human society requires are supplied by the demigod agents of the Lord. No one can manufacture anything. So that is the difference between an industrial society. An industrial society wants to manufacture everything independently, right? They, again, still whatever ingredients they use, talk about semiconductors or different machinery, they are still using the ingredients provided. They did not manufacture them, right? They're manufacturing things out of those ingredients. And in this process, the whole mentality becomes very exploitatory, in the sense that, why the nature is reacting back through climate change, global warming, depletion, pollution of the water and other resources, because there is the platform is not dharma. See, when the dharmic platform actually provides everything nice. In the next verse, Srila Prabhupada is saying that we need actually eatables, grains, fruits, vegetables. All of that is already provided by the nature. We don't need artificial luxuries of life. In order to procure that, the resources of the earth are exploited, and because once the mentality of luxury develops, you want to do it at the cost of others, and so there is exploitation of resources, pollution of resources, and that's a very atheistic and demoniac way of fulfilling the needs of life. And that also is not perfect, actually. There's so much pollution, nothing is pure, but whatever is needed to be to keep the body and soul together and live comfortably, and it's all provided by the arrangement of yajnas. Take, for example, all eatables of human society includes grains, fruit, vegetables, milk, sugar for the persons in the mode of goodness. Eatables for non-vegetarians like meats, none of which is manufactured by man, right? Now they're talking about creating artificial meat in a laboratory, right? But even for that, where are the ingredients coming from? Right? It's just mixing of different ingredients, but nobody made those ingredients. Then again, take the example of heat, light, water, air, etc., which are also necessities of life. None of them can be manufactured by human society, you see. Even what we call manufacturing, ultimately, we are still have to be dependent on the supplies provided by higher authorities. Without Supreme Lord, there can be no profuse sunlight, moonlight, rainfall, breeze, without which no one can live. Obviously, our life is dependent on the supplies from the Lord. See, even for our manufacturing enterprises, we require so many raw materials: metal, sulfur, mercury, manganese, so many essences, all of which are supplied by the agents of the Lord, with the purpose that we should make proper use of them to keep ourselves fit and healthy for the purpose of self-realization, leading to the ultimate goal of life, namely liberation from the material struggle for existence. Okay. Yeah, so that's the ultimate goal, and towards that goal, whatever we need is provided by the authorities. The other issue is that, because, see, in that understanding of liberation, we know that this is a temporary existence. right? This is not something all in all, and so we don't want artificial luxuries of life. But when somebody has a linear understanding of life, hey, you live and die only once, and so let's enjoy to the fullest. There's no reaction to anything. Let's exploit everything that we can for our needs. We don't have to worry about future. So there is that kind of perverted view or incorrect understanding leads to the situation where we have different manufacturing enterprises to support the artificial way of life. If we forget the purpose of human life and simply take supplies from the agents of the Lord for sense gratification and become more and more entangled in material existence, which is not the purpose of creation, certainly we become thieves. Therefore, we are punished by the laws of material nature. It's a very nicely Srila Prabhupada explains why we are thieves. Well, if a company provides me resources or different benefits, why? So that I can use that in the service of the company, right? That is the purpose. But if I use it not for serving the purpose of the business or the corporation, but for my own gratification or for my own enjoyment, then I'm a thief, right? That's why, when you join any employment, what is this employee code of conduct, right? If you go through the employee code of conduct, will say, well, I promise to use the resources provided by the company for performance of my assigned duties and not for anything else, right? Whether it is intellectual property, IT resources, name it, right? You're traveling for business, your meals, your per diem, all of that is covered, right? Not for the enjoyment, our own purpose, but for serving the company. Same concept. If you don't do that, then we become thieves, right? So if you go back to the translation, all this is provided to us, and then we just consume it for our own benefit or for our own enjoyment without offering it to the demigods, right? Then we are certainly thieves. So there are two parts to this. One who is actually directly using it for the service of the Lord, then they are not obliged to again offer it back to the demigods, but one has to really act on that platform. If one is not situated on that platform, and does not perpetuate the cycle of again offering it back to the demigods, then that is thievery, right? Because that is then what it becomes. It's more like transactional in the sense that, well, I need this, and so I'm just going to do the sacrifice, get it from demigods, and I'm just going to use it for my own enjoyment. Then that mentality does not break the cycle of that false understanding. The whole idea is to bring us to the understanding that, well, we are not the enjoyer, right? A society of thieves can never be happy because they have no aim in life, right? Also, there is a saying that honesty among thieves is almost like an oxymoron, right? Because the thieves, they actually, the whole idea of thievery is meant on cheating others. But in a group of thieves, they collaborate together to steal something, and they say, well, we should now honestly divide the spoils between ourselves, right? So that is, you cannot expect thieves to be honest. A society of thieves can never be happy because they have no aim in life, right? What does it mean? It means, well, they don't know what is the purpose of creation, right? Their aim in life is simply to satisfy the senses. The gross materialistic thieves, they have no ultimate goal of life. They are simply directed to sense gratification. See, nor do they have knowledge how to perform yajna. Lord Chaitanya, however, inaugurated the easiest performance of yajna, namely Sankirtan yajna, which can be performed by anyone in the world who accepts the principles of Krishna consciousness. So this chanting of the names of the Lord is very easy. In this Kali Yuga, especially the chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra is prescribed. There are many references in the scriptures which explicitly mention that. And there are no time and place restrictions. You can get beads, japamala. You can dedicate, 1 hour, 1.5 hours. You can start with half an hour. and just chant a prescribed number of rounds on the mala. You can start with 2, then 4, 6, 8. You can there is no limit, and you simply chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this is the Maha Mantra, or the ultimate mantra of deliverance, specifically prescribed for the age of Kali. Any questions on verse number 12? Okay, verse number 13. Let's do one last verse, and then I want to take a few minutes to discuss. We might have to change the timing of the class, so I'll make sure I keep some time to discuss that. Okay, verse number 13. Yagyasishtasina santo muchyante sarvakilvisaihi bhunjante te tva agam papa ye pachanti atma karanat. The devotees of the Lord are released from all kind of sins because they eat food which is offered first for sacrifice. Others who prepare food for personal sense enjoyment verily eat only sin. Pachanti, prepare food. Atma karanat, for sense enjoyment. Yagyasista, that means food that is offered in sacrifice or satisfaction of wish. Purport: the devotees of the Supreme Lord, the persons who are in Krishna consciousness, are called santas. It comes from the word santa, means saint, or the Latin saint is probably derived from santa in Sanskrit. They are always in love with the Lord as it is prescribed in Brahma Samhita. Premanjana churita bhakti vilochanena santah sadeva hridayeshu vilokayanti. So santah again appears. So this santa probably comes from the same root word as santa, or peaceful. They are able to see the Lord within their heart. Hridayeshu vilokayanti. Why? Because their eyes, premanjana churita bhakti vilochana, their eyes are tinged with the ointment of love. Right? Santas being always in a compact of love with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, which literally means one who gives pleasure, or Mukunda, which literally means the giver of liberation, or Krishna, which literally means all attractive person. These are all the different qualities of the same personality of Godhead, and because of that attachment, or one is practicing to cultivate that attachment, one first offers the food that is prepared as a bhoga to the Supreme Person. Therefore, such devotees are always performing yagyas, different modes of devotional service. So offering bhoga is one form of yagya. What are the other forms of yagya? Well, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. Shravanam, you are engaging one's ears and mind in the process of yagya. Kirtanam, you are engaging tongue in glorification of the Lord. And Smaranam, one is engaging one's memory in remembering the Lord and his beautiful pastimes. All this performance of yagyas keep them always aloof from all kind of contamination of sinful association in the material world, or one becomes free from bondage because one is any activities associated with the Lord is transcendental to the three modes of nature. That means then one is not bound by the reactions that accrue from the interactions of the three modes. Others who prepare food for self or sense gratification are not only thieves, but they actually eat all kind of sins. How can a person be happy if he is both a thief and sinful? It is not possible. Therefore, in order for people to become happy in all respects, they must be taught to perform the easy process of Sankirtan Yagya, or full Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, there can be no peace or happiness in the world. So there are different elements again of Yagya. So one is, the tongue. The tongue is the only sense organ which is both a working sense and a knowledge acquiring sense. There are 5 knowledge acquiring sense: the eyes, the nose, the tongue, ears, and the skin, by which we perceive information from the world around us, right? We see, we smell, we taste, we hear, we feel. And there are 5 working senses by which we act, right? So the hands, the limbs, right? The arms and the legs, then the tongue, the genitals, and the evacuatory organs, right? So these are the 5 working senses by which we perform action. So tongue, as you can see, it's both a working sense and a knowledge acquiring sense. So when a tongue is used for speaking, it's a working sense, right? Because I'm doing the work of conveying a message. When the tongue is used for eating or tasting, it's a knowledge acquiring sense, because it tells me if a particular preparation, what is the taste of it, right? So there are 6 primary tastes, right? So yeah, so if one is able to control the tongue, then one can control both working and knowledge acquiring senses. For instance, by chanting the names of the Lord, which is the act of working, right? The working senses. One can control the mind, one can control the anger and other passions. They are controlled by it. Similarly, tongue is the same line as belly and genitals, because when tongue is uncontrolled and wants to eat uncontrollably, then what happens is the belly becomes full, and when belly is full, it agitates the genitals, and then when genitals are uncontrolled, then one falls down into material cesspool. So by controlling tongue, one can control the belly and one can control the genitals. So the one way to control the tongue is to eat the remnants. When we prepare the bhoga, we prepare it with the consciousness that we are going to offer it to the Lord in preparing for the pleasure of the Lord. Then there are restrictions what can be offered to the Lord, right? So that you are not otherwise, if there are no restrictions, then the tongue has unlimited desires, right? So those restrictions in terms of what can be offered to the Lord has to be prepared in a certain way, and when the food is ready, you immediately want to eat, right? But then you're training the tongue and the belly to restrain. You take the time out to prepare the bhoga plate for Krishna, offer it, right? Then you mix it back, you wash the plates, right? And so in this way, we are controlling the propensity of the working sense. And similarly, tongue can be controlled both ways, the taste and speaking. So the taste, the eating propensity is controlled by only eating the remnants of the food offered to Krishna, performing Ekadasi fasting is another way. And the speaking propensity is controlled by not speaking things which are not related to Krishna. Of course, it's not always possible if you're working. But apart from that, the idea is that you don't talk about unnecessary things, right? There is unlimited things to gossip about, but we have to cultivate the tongue in speaking about glories of Krishna, which could just means reading and speaking it aloud, sharing with your family members, speaking it aloud, or chanting on japa beads, right? That's the best way. Even if no one's there to listen, you can just be in your solitude and just chant the names of Krishna. In this way, the tongue can be controlled. And so, yeah, that is sacrifice. Sacrifice means you give up something that is pleasing for a higher purpose, right? So the tongue has unlimited desires, but then tongue is restrained. So you're not allowing the tongue to indulge in personal sense enjoyment, right? Because that ultimately just leads to engaging in sinful activities, right? Because there is no restraint on what is to be eaten, what is not to be eaten, and the idea is that, well, you just want to please one's senses, and the sense enjoyment, which is uncontrolled and unrestrained, it's not in the mood of, is not part of yajna, simply leads to downfall. Okay, I think we'll take a break. If there are any questions for verse number 13, you can ask right now. Anyone?
So I have a question. So I learned this law as part of Trikal's, as part of the Swadhyay.
Okay.
Swadhyay kind of prayers. And it's kind of interesting because I think there they say that you should say this prior to eating, right? To be thankful for the food that you have and so on. So I think I was just I was trying to compare the description that you gave to how it's how can I say, how it's referenced by the Swadhyay
Right.
program.
Very, very good point. If you see the most cultures of the world, the idea of prayer is there before consuming a meal, right? But the idea of prayer, if you see in the most cultures, is that, well, we are thankful to the God for providing us. But then what they are thinking is that, well, God is an order supplier who is providing us so that I can enjoy my senses or the desires. So that's what ultimately boils down to. But here the idea of yagya, the word yagya is used. So yagya means satisfaction of Vishnu, right? If you look at the definition of what literally yagya means, there is yagya purusha, or the personality of yagya, that is Vishnu himself. In the earlier ages, Treta Yuga, when the sacrifice is done, Vishnu himself used to appear out of fire and personally accept the offering. So yagya is meant for satisfaction of Vishnu. When we offer the prayer that thanks God for offering this to me, that means saying, I'm using God as to serve my own senses rather than serving Lord's senses. And so there is a very, drastic, it's like 180 degrees flipped apart understanding of what the Vaishnava understanding is. Same thing, if you look at all the religions of the world, what is their idea? Well, we are all the children of the God. We are the sons of the God. God is our ultimate father, which is true. But what is the Vaishnava understanding? The five modes in which, or five relationships in which we serve Krishna, in that none of the relationship is that we are the children of Krishna. Rather, we serve Krishna in parental affection. Because it's always a parent who serves the child more than child serving the parents. So it is true that we are children of Krishna. That is not the mood in which the Vaishnavas serve. It's not one of the five modes by which one serve. Because in that relationship, there is an acceptance of service. A Vaishnava does not want to take service from the Lord. Not at all. Pure devotees, there are so many examples. The 6 Goswamis in Vrindavan, they were fasting sometimes for like 3 days, and just after 3 days, they would just take one handful of buttermilk. Once Radharani, she comes as a gopi, a small girl, and she's so pleased with the devotion of the Goswamis. I can't remember the name. I think maybe it was Sanatan Goswami. That he, she brings some milk or makes some kheer, and he does not realize that Radharani personally coming. Later on, when his brother tells him that, hey, what did you do? That she was not an ordinary girl. That was Radharani. You took service from Radharani. You are not a Vaishnava. You're supposed to serve and not take service. So it's a very high level of devotion. Of course, we cannot act artificially on that level, but this whole process is to train us to come that platform of understanding that actually you're meant to serve and not take service. Of course, what we are providing service, again, we are not able to do it independently. All the ingredients are provided by the Lord. There is a beautiful prayer which says that, hey, Lord, I don't have anything of my own that I can offer to you. But just like sun is worshipped by a lamp, which is a fragment of sun's potency, and just like Mother Ganga is worshipped by her own water, how do people worship Ganga? They go into Ganga, they take water from Ganga and offer it back to Ganga. How do they worship the sun? They offer a lamp, but lamp is only a fragment of the fire that sun has. You're offering the same thing back. Similarly, I'm offering you that is provided by you. Please accept it with the same love as you accepted cheap rice from Sudama, milk from Mother Yashoda's breast, and the butter from gopis. Right. So the Vaishnava understanding is to offer service, not take service from the Lord. Does it help?
Thank you. Yes, it does. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. So if not, I wanted to briefly discuss, this time at 5 o'clock on Saturdays. It's unfortunately not conducive for me anymore. I'm open to receive any suggestions. I'm sure it won't be, whatever time we select might not work out for all of you. And in which case, I guess as always, I'll always record the sessions and post it. Of course, it's not same as having a live session, but I'm willing to make any adjustments. Well, one possibility is we could do Friday evenings, because the next day is not a work day, and there's no immediate need to go to bed early. So that's one possibility. I could do early Saturday morning, but I guess Saturday people, they've been waking up early every day. Maybe, they want to take a little break and not wake up early. By early, I mean, it depends how, but like 7 a.m. could be and one option. any thoughts? I mean, any week evening is also fine with me, but I guess week evenings it's probably not the best idea, and that's why I'm thinking Friday evening and Saturday mornings might be a better option. Sunday is also fine with me actually. Sunday I already take 2 classes and I don't mind adding in one more. It would be a busy day, but I rather have one day fully open and then be busy on Sunday. So Sunday, some of you teach at Gurukul. It's already very busy, I guess. Maybe Sunday late afternoon, or that's one option. But my preference would be Friday evening or Saturday morning. Any thoughts? Anyone?
I'm fine with
Saturday
Friday evening.
Sorry, I heard both Saturday morning and Friday evening.
Yes, Prabhu. I said Friday evening when another Mataji said Saturday morning.
Okay, can we have Friday evening? Can you raise hand? How many for Friday evening? Can you use the raise hand functionality?
I'm open for any of the timings, Prabhuji. I'm flexible for that.
Okay. Nitin Prabhu, you said Friday, so you're 2 for Fridays. If you do Friday evening, Maulik, does it work for you? That would be Saturday morning for you.
Yeah,
Maulik,
it works for me.
okay, so Friday evening. What about Parulben?
I can't actually do Friday morning or Saturday morning. I think I can do Sunday afternoon or late afternoon, but I can't do Friday. I have to I like when no more work
Evening?
day during the Friday evenings. Yeah, I
Friday
normally
evening?
have to work late. Yes, I normally work until about 7 p.m. and then I have kids, so taking
Okay.
care of kids. So
Okay. Jyotsna Mataji, Suma.
I'm fine with both the days, Prabhu Kashyap.
Okay. So I think
I'm
Friday.
also fine with both days. Sorry. Sorry, Prabhuji. I'm also fine with both days. I think Saturday morning works better for me, if possible.
yeah.
Because even I have kids, but either is fine. I can try and make it work.
Okay.
I can definitely try and make Saturday morning work. But Friday night it will be hard.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm fine if that's the case. If more people are interested, I can do a Saturday morning also. But I have service at
How
the
early
temple,
you can
Prabhu.
start Saturday morning?
I am
7
fine with even like you said 7 a.m. I am fine with that, Prabhu.
Does 7 a.m. work for all of you?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So let me give it a thought. Either on, and if you have to do Friday evening, would 7 p.m. would be a good option,
Yes, Prabhuji.
right? Because right now you're all working from home, but I guess once you start commuting, by the time you come home, and I think 7 p.m. might be a good option. So let me give it a thought. I'll either do 7 p.m. Friday or 7 a.m. on Saturday morning. We might experiment to see. And I'm sorry it might not work for everyone, but unfortunately I'm not able to continue at this time right now. But thank you so much for your interest and continued support. I'll see what works best for everyone, and I'll let you know. I'll send it on WhatsApp message. So most likely it would be either 7 p.m. Friday evening or 7 a.m. Saturday morning.
Prabhuji, could we do a little bit later on Saturday morning, or that's the only time that you have available? For everyone.
Like when you say a little
Like
later,
maybe
how?
closer to 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock.
I think 9 would be a little late for sure. I can see if
Okay.
it's possible for if it's good for others also. I mean, I think
Sure, no problem.
I think everyone has a different schedule. I guess we'll see what it works. I'll rather have it earlier than later. But let me give it a thought. I think I got feedback and input from all of you. I'll decide and let you know. Okay.
Okay, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Prabhuji.
everybody.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Krishna.
Hare
Okay.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare